Hi, it's Nell. Do you want a cool, flowering, succulent houseplant for the holidays? Well, look no further because Christmas cactus, aka holiday cactus, there's also Thanksgiving cactus, is the plant for you. Now, this is how to care for it while it's blooming and after it's blooming because it is actually a very long-lasting houseplant. So, on to the care tips. Okay, so first, before we do the care tips, I'm going to explain the Christmas Thanksgiving holiday cactus. This is technically a Thanksgiving cactus. When I show you a close-up of it, you will actually see it's got notched leaves. They look like crab legs almost. You know how crab legs have those little spiny things on them. That's why this is also called crab cactus. It's also time to bloom around Thanksgiving time more than Christmas time. The Christmas cactus is more of a rounder leaf without the notches, and it also has more of a pendulous form. The Christmas cactus isn't sold as much in the trade, and I was told it's because of that form they have, that drooping form. They're harder to ship. They break easier, so it's usually the Thanksgiving cactus, which is called the Christmas cactus, because most people want their flowering plants right around Thanksgiving time. So this blooms November into December, whereas the Christmas cactus blooms December into January. But regardless of it, they are both the same genus. It's Schlumbergera. I learned it as Schlumbergia, which it is still referred to sometimes. Some people call it that. But they are different species. But regardless of that, you care for them in exactly the same way. Okay, on to the care. But first of all, I'm going to say that there will be more information in the blog post. I'm just going to touch on things because I am a blogger, so that's where I have most of the information on the plants that I do. So you can head over there to joycegarden.com, or the link will be down below if you are really, truly interested in keeping this plant for the long haul and you need more information. So we are going to start with size. This one is in a 6-inch pot. It's actually 3 separate plants. It's how it was propagated by the grower. I've seen them in 4-inch pots, 6-inch pots. I've seen them in 8-inch pots. I've seen them in 10-inch hanging pots. And I've also seen them sold in mixed holiday gardens. The oldest one that I've seen, I think it was like 25 years old, they said, and it was about 6 to 7 feet wide. It was just really wide and huge, not too tall, not too terribly tall, but it was really wide, and it was trailing down beautifully. So they are very long lasting. Okay, on to light. It likes nice, bright, natural light, like a medium to high light exposure, but without being in any direct hot sun. Otherwise, it'll burn. If you have it in too low light, it's not going to look good. If you have it in too strong of a light, it's not going to look good. Which strong light, again, I mean by direct sun. But it does need that nice, bright light to flower again, and to actually have all these buds open up. It needs a nice bright light. On to watering. One important thing to know is that this is an epiphytic cactus. It doesn't grow in the soil. It's actually a tropical cactus. So it grows on rocks, on other plants. So what happens is it rains, all the water washes off, and the roots don't stay wet. So it's very important that the roots do not stay wet because this plant is subject to root rot. So what you want to do is you want to water it really well, let all the water drain out, make sure it's all drained out. You don't want it to sit in water, and then you want to let it dry out before you water it again. Now, while it's flowering, I always give it a little, I I give it a little more water, meaning I water it a little more often. After it's through flowering, I back off on the watering. And then when it gets warm again in spring and summer, I will pick up the watering frequency a bit. And then when it's gone into its dormant time, when it's starting to flower, that's when you back off on the watering almost completely. And how often you water it depends on your conditions, how hot your house is, how cool it is. Of course, the cooler it is, the less you are going to water. I just got this one here. I haven't ever had a Christmas cactus in Tucson, so I'll see how much I need to water it, how often I need to water it. I keep on saying it how much. The amount really doesn't matter as long as it runs out of the bottom of the pot and the plant gets thoroughly drenched and then it's gone. Now, having just said that this is an epiphytic cactus, this leads us into humidity. So because it is an epiphytic cactus, it grows more in tropical, subtropical areas. That's where it is native to. It prefers more humidity than a cactus here in the Arizona desert. So if you are really, really dry, you might want to put it on a tray of pebbles just to up the ante on the humidity a bit if you think that it needs it. But again, you don't want to keep the roots wet at all. Just a little water around is sort of like you might do for an orchid, that sort of thing. Okay, so we'll do a close-up of my beautiful Christmas cactus and my sweet sleeping kitty cat for a little change of scene. So now we're going to move onto temperature. And it prefers to be around 65 to 70 degrees, which is sort of the normal temperatures of our home. And a little bit cooler at night. Actually, you can get them to stay in bloom longer. You can prolong the bloom period if it is a little bit cooler. Here in Tucson, it is November 14th when I'm filming this, and it's in the mid-80s. So mine has been opening up really fast because of the heat. So it's going to be gone sooner. Judging by it, it may actually be gone by the end of the month. I mean, just meaning the flowers are all abloom. But that's okay, because that means that I can get a poinsettia when I get back. On to fertilizing. Now, I never fertilized mine in Santa Barbara. All I would do is I would worm compost and compost in the spring, and they did fine, and they flowered again just fine. But you want a nice balanced houseplant liquid fertilizer to fertilize it, and you could do it in starting in early spring, then you could do it again in midsummer, and then you stop by the late summer. You don't want to fertilize it after then, because then that's when it needs to go into its rest to start blooming again. Yours might not need it. You might just be able to get away with a little compost also. But I had a friend who did fertilize his with orchid fertilizer, and I believe that the numbers were 20, 10, 20, and his Christmas cactus did just fine. So onto soil or soil mix. Because this does not grow typically in soil in nature, you do not want anything heavy. You want a very porous, very light mix, but also that's very rich too. So when I transplant this one, I'm going to use succulent and cactus mix, compost, and I'm going to use coco coir, which is environmentally more environmentally sound alternative to peat moss. It's nice and rich, but it also drains really well, and it helps to hold all the nutrients in the roots. So pruning is not really necessary for this plant unless you want to tame it a little bit. Over time, they get sort of a wild form to them if you want to reel it in a little bit. I like the craziness of this plant, so I probably won't prune mine, but you might also need to prune it if you want to propagate it, which leads us into propagation. Now, I actually don't prune mine to propagate it. I twist off the leaf sections which I'll show you close up in a bit. But after you get a leaf section off, whether it's 1 node or 2 nodes or 3 nodes or however many nodes you want to do, you can just put it into a succulent cactus mix, a very light mix, or a propagation mix, and you can put it down about 1/2 inch into there, and then it will just root on its own just fine. The other way that I have propagated it before is by division, and as you can see, there are 3 plants in here, so you could divide this plant up. And again, I might need to get in closer so you can see that also. Oh yes, it's afternoon nap time. Riley just passes out, and I could talk, I could jump up and down and stomp, and he won't even wake up. Passed out. Okay, so I'm getting in here a little bit, and as you can see on the tag here, it says Christmas Cactus. That's why I left it there. But it actually has these spinies. I'll do it's got a lot of white stuff from the greenhouse, but I don't know if you can see those. Those are what actually makes it a Thanksgiving cactus. But anyway, there are 3 plants in here. 1, 2, 3, and I could just take it out of the pot and I could divide them. And that would be one way of propagating, or I could just take a leaf section here. These are the leaf sections. I don't have any of them that don't have a blossom on them, or they aren't in bloom, so I don't want to snap them off, but you just twist and they come off very easily. Oh, and the best time to propagate them is like a month or 2 after they are finished flowering. Which leads us on to flowers. Oh yes, they are fabulous, aren't they? This one happens to be, it's called Scarlet. There's, I've had one that's a deeper red also. They come in white, peach, violet, pinkish. There's one called Gold. It's sort of an ivory color. I'm going to put some pictures in the blog post of some of the different colors of Christmas cactus I've seen. But they are wonderful. I love them. They last, here they only last about 3 days because it's warm. This one here is starting to go, but it's got tons of it, tons on it. Some of those leaf sections actually have 2 blossoms on them. Just delightful. Oh, and if you wanted to take the spent flowers off, you can do it at any time. You just sort of twist, just like that. And it will come right off, or if they don't bother you, you can leave them on. And I have done a video on getting your Christmas cactus to bloom again. It's an older video, so I think I am going to redo it at some point. But I will leave the link down to that below, because like poinsettias, they are sensitive to the light, so you want to give them equal amounts of darkness, or a little bit more darkness than light, to get them to flower again come the fall, the early fall. So that would be like something like 10 hours of light and 14 hours of darkness, and that is how they bloom again. Now, mine growing outdoors in Santa Barbara would sometimes bloom again in the summertime. Now, in terms of pests and problems, it is subject to 2 or 3 different kinds of root rot. It will look like it's sort of withering and wilting, and then the plant will die. That's too much, water, or it could be too much humidity combined with that. Mine would get a little touch of mealybug in Santa Barbara, and I would just hose them off, and it would be fine. And what mealybug looks like is cotton, little white specks of cotton. I've done a post on mealybugs. I will leave that link for you down below, and also in the blog post. And I've also been told that they are subject to spider mites, which I have also done a post on. So information on those will be in the post and also down below again. So is this plant safe for pets? Well, I've put it right over by Riley to say yes. This one is considered to be non-toxic to both cats and dogs. Here are some things that are good to know. This plant will bloom better if it's slightly pot bound. I repot mine every 3 to 6 years at the most, so don't rush to repot it. And also remember I said to water it a little bit more often when it's flowering, and that might be once every 3 weeks as compared to every 4 weeks, or every 2 weeks compared to every 3 weeks, depending on your temperatures and the light situation. So if the whole plant is changing color or part of it is changing color, it is due to some sort of environmental stress. Like if it's turning a reddish, a burgundyish, a brownish, that could be either too little water or too much sun. So if you water it too much, it will mush out, plainly put. And if you water it too little, it will shrivel. The leaves are not nearly as plump as they are, and they will turn color. So you can get a Thanksgiving cactus to bloom a little bit later just by keeping the temperatures lower. It's going to stall the opening of the buds. It'll probably set buds, but if it's kept cooler, like at around 50, 55 degrees, then it's not going to open nearly as fast as it would if the temperatures were like 65 or 70 or higher. So that's one way to get it to bloom a little bit later. But as I said, most of them in the trade are Thanksgiving cactus sold as Christmas cactus. So that's just it. I've also seen them sold as holiday cactus. So that kind of covers all bases. Like Riley is in his upside down mode now, huh? Oh, it's just that afternoon. It's 4 in the afternoon. It's, sleepy time. I'm just going to wrap it up by saying this is a really great, easy care houseplant that you can have for years and years. And also be sure and check the blog post for more details. I came over here for the ending because we have the scarlet of the Christmas cactus, the red of the vinca, and the magenta of the bougainvillea. Beautiful. I thank you for all your likes and your subscribes. I really appreciate them. Come back because I have a lot more videos coming your way. Now let's get out in the garden or into our indoor gardens and make our worlds a more beautiful place. As always, I thank you so much for watching, and happy holidays, and may your Christmas cactus bloom beautifully and live to a ripe old age. Bye.